Yeah.
So basically, what I want to do, this clip's not a really long one, but it kind of gives you a sense of the fair and what was going on. This is in 1915, and these little locomotives were representations of the sort of state-of-the-art Pacific locomotive that was being brought into service around the country. So
Now,
over the top of this, go ahead.
just so you're aware, the only, shall we say, catch, and you should just be aware, is the frame rate is low. It's probably 3 or 4 frames a second. So oh, now that locomotive moving through came faster at first. So it's somewhere between 3 and 10 frames a second.
Okay. But as it's
So
still, I mean, we're still getting the information across, right?
It's plenty good, but I just wanted you to know that if there was something that was critical frame rate wise.
No, I think it's just the images of the time and those little locomotives.
Yep.
So what I'll be doing is like this locomotive that showed up just there. It's what they call a 1500. It was a little switcher locomotive. We actually have that at the ranch. It's was damaged in the fire. And these are the original passenger cars. There was one remaining passenger car that we had just completed rebuilding and had yet to put it into service, and it was destroyed in the fire as well.
Oh.
So this one you see the 1914, the 1912, and the 1913. The 1915 is the locomotive that's in Sacramento at the museum. Well, it used to be. They've taken it out. And it's it never had a fire in the boiler. It never operated. So there's our 3 locomotives with the 1913 getting ready for a new boiler. So once that's done, I can go back to all right. So I'll work on that transition between the YouTube and the PowerPoint so I can get back to it more seamlessly. So then the presentation just, so these slides are coming across okay, enough detail,
yep.
readable?
Look perfect.
Okay. So then talk about what happened after the Pan-Pacific exhibition. How the locomotives were sort of moved around. That's a picture of the 1913 as it was operated up in Calistoga. So then Al basically created the Swanton Pacific Railroad in 1979, operated the 3 locomotives. And then gave the ranch and the railroad to Cal Poly in '93. You guys, the history of Al Smith, he's the founder of Orchard Supply Hardware. So that's where his money came from. So the equipment, we'll talk a little bit about Swanton Pacific Railroad equipment. We'll talk about facilities. And we'll talk about operations. And then a little bit about the society, how the society operates, and what it means to the railroad. And then, of course, the actual discussion about the fire and the impacts of the fire. And then talk about some bright spots. The fact that we had a locomotive off-site was a good thing. The 502 is in the machine shop, which is the diesel locomotive. The machine shop was not damaged, and most of the train station and the tracks are serviceable. And then a little bit about kind of what we think the future holds for the railroad, what steps we're going to need to take. And then we'll put that slide up as kind of the final slide if people want more information about either the Pan-Pacific International Exhibition, the Overfair Railroad, or the Swanton Pacific Railroad itself. So that'll give them access to that. And then I can
So this is when we would open the mics back up for the Q&A. During your talk, it's best that we shut everybody else off, if that's okay with you. Hey, Charlie, I think your mic is off.
Can you still hear me?
I got it.
I can hear Gary.
Okay.
Sorry,
There you go.
that was my fault. So I can exit the slideshow. Okay, so now how do I get back to a full screen?
Well, I see you full screen now when you talk.
What's that?
And now we see Gary. And you should see me when I'm talking. If right now I'm talking.
That's what we see now is you. We see Jamie full screen.
Okay. I opened it up in gallery view, so I see everybody. Jamie, did you take control back? Is that correct?
Not yet. You want me to?
I'm just what I'm thinking about here is when I'm done with the video, how do I step out of screen sharing and go back to the
do you see a share or screen share button anywhere around your screen? You might have to hover over the window somewhere.
Not anymore. That's what I'm curious about. I had it before when you first set it up.
Well, you managed to do it. And you did train from the slides to your camera. I don't know how you did it.
So now I no longer have a screen share button, so I'm a little bit confused about that.
Yeah, I wonder how you got out of screen share, because when you were done and you kind of said you were done, that's when you popped back up as your full video.
Okay.
So somehow you killed it. I don't know how. But
so let's.
You must have just turned your camera off because your face went away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm clicking around too much.
Now you're back.
No. That's the purpose of this.
Jamie, do you have the ability to share your screen now? Did I give it back to you?
Well, let me see. I still see my share button. Let me.
Okay. So I wonder, can you make me, just to try this, can you make me the presenter again?
Oh, I haven't. You have been all along. I haven't taken it back yet.
Okay, but for some reason on.
Or did you give it back?
So. Yeah, but I lost the share screen button. Can you try giving me, making me the presenter again?
Yeah, because it must have gotten undone somehow. I didn't take it back, but here.
I need to look more carefully at what I did, because what I might have done is given it back to you. Okay, so now I've got this share. You asked me to do this, so now I've got that. Okay, now
there's your slide.
Yeah. So I can go back to the program itself. Okay, so I've got that. Now I'm doing the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, So now I'm looking, I have a little window up at the top, and right now Gary shows up in that window. But that's who, that's the group, I guess. So in that small window, there's a share button. And I have the choices: select items to share, pause screen sharing, or stop screen sharing. If I say stop screen sharing,
And now you're back to just your video.
okay, so now it's just the video. So, and okay. So once I do stop screen sharing, then it looks like that also cancels the cancels my presenter status, because now I don't have the screen share button any longer available to me.
Yeah, that could be. Your entry screen doesn't say presenter anymore.
Okay, so that's it. So as long as I just tap the stop screen sharing, and then once that, well, I tell you what, we'll leave the slide up and take questions. Do you have the ability to mute everybody, or is that something each person has to do?
No, I can do it all at once.
And then you can unmute everybody all at once.
Right.
So once we get to the slide that has the web addresses for more information, that's probably time then to unmute everybody.
Whenever you want to. Yeah, whenever you want to basically do the question answer.
And but I'll stay in screen sharing mode in case they ask specific questions about the PowerPoint. I can roll back to the slides on the PowerPoint to illustrate whatever it is I need to illustrate.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Even while you're presenter and sharing and all that, I can still control microphones.
Okay. So what I'll do is just basically leave up that that last slide. The other thing I might do is consider so I can leave up that last slide, or what I'll do is after that's been up for a while, I'll put one more slide in that'll be just a nice photograph of the locomotive that people can take a closer look at. And then we can answer questions and talk about where the railroad's going, what's happening with the recovery operation, that sort of thing. Okay, you think this is going to work?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Well, let me fine-tune that PowerPoint a little more. I'll add that last slide that's just sort of a general interest visual slide, and then we can go ahead and I can get a copy of that to you so you have it as a backup, and then I'll be ready to go.
Very good. And just like today, I usually get on about 20 minutes ahead of the appointed hour, so you can join in anytime you want. If you want to try something again, or if you just want to sail in and do it, you can do that too.
No, I'll probably join early just to make sure we got all the stuff, the I's dotted and T's crossed. There's too many moving parts.
I've always got it going at least 20 minutes, sometimes as many as 30 ahead of time. So.
And that way we can make sure we've got everything lined up right. And then if there is some sort of disaster with hardware or whatever, we have time to institute Plan B.
Yeah.
And I think Plan B would be if something happened with my internet connection or my computer, Plan B would be for you to go ahead and pull the PowerPoint up, and then for me to join by phone if necessary, so we can go through the process and
Yeah,
successful event.
that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, and is the video embedded in the PowerPoint, or will you send out a separate file?
It's embedded in the PowerPoint. I just have the link in the PowerPoint, and it opens it right up.
But do I have to have a copy of the file then?
No.
The video file.
No, it's just going to YouTube. So what's happening
YouTube link. Okay, great.
is PowerPoint is taking you out into YouTube land, and then what I do is once I get into YouTube, I hit the expand screen so it becomes a full screen image.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. There's other videos as well. There's some more recent videos of the locomotive working at Swanton Pacific, but that seems like overkill. I think getting people a feel for that 1915 Pan-Pacific exhibition and the history of those locomotives is probably the sort of the critical piece in this. I mean, otherwise it's just a 1/3 scale. Right.
You may have noticed on some of the other Parlor Card chat descriptions of the ones that are completed, that in some cases we provide lots of links so that people want to follow up for more information they can. It's entirely up to you. If you want to give me links to add to the Parlor Card chat page for post viewers,
Sure.
We can do that.
Well, those 4 links that I provide in the PowerPoint is a good starting point.
Okay.
That much takes everybody so it gives them the full history of the Pan-Pacific International Exhibition. There's 2 different slides there, one on the railroad, one on the exhibition, and then the links to the Swanton Pacific Railroad information. So that pretty well gives them everything they would need, and would if they're inclined, it leads them in new directions that they could pursue just by continuing their search. So yeah, I just throw those 4 up to the website as a follow-up to that. And maybe
just so you know, I've tried to make something good out of COVID and used this opportunity to take all of Jamie's Parlor Card chats and more or less make a YouTube channel out of it.
Right.
So we've created a YouTube channel. Well, we had one with like train tales and stuff. I've added all the Parlor Card chats, and so all the links Jamie's talking about obviously are important for people that are watching the YouTube channel. They all expect that, you watch all the YouTubes and the people are always pointing down, check the links below.
Yeah.
So I try to make sure that, Jamie gathers them, and then I make sure they're in the YouTube descriptions.
Yeah.
So it lives, the bottom line is it lives on after the Parlor Card chat
Oh, sure.
as part of our YouTube channel.
That's the beauty of the technology. So
Yep.
Yeah. So that all makes sense. Cool. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else we need, or for me, I think I'm.
If you're comfortable, Charlie, I'm golden at my end.
Okay. All right. Well, I will probably later today work on fine-tuning a couple of more slides for that presentation, and then I'll email you a copy of the deck, so you'll have a copy at your end, and then we should be good. We have.
All right. Excellent. Very good. Thanks again, Charlie.
Sure. Well, it'll be fun. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds for the Swanton Pacific Railroad. Al Smith gave us enough money to operate the railroad, but he didn't give us enough money to rebuild it. So it's there's some tough questions that have to be answered, and we're going to have to see what the path forward might look like. But again, the bright spot is we have one of our steam locomotives is being finished up as we speak, and we have the diesel locomotive, so we have the basis for sort of recreating the railroad. We have no rail cars, no buildings, but we have a couple of locomotives and some track. So,
well, the more you can spread the word by doing stuff like this, the better your chances of doing something.
Yeah, we've had some people. There's been a couple people who made substantial donations, 5-figure donations that, or 6-figure donations, I should say. That,
excellent.
Give us hope that there's some people out there. We haven't even scratched the surface on like some of these existing railroad foundations that have an interest in railroad history as supporting activities that are related to railroad history. So we'll probably be pursuing some of that as well.
Okay. Is the railroad operational now? I mean, did bridges and things like that burn, or is there still track? Basically, could you run a train if you wanted to?
With a little bit of effort, yes. There's some of the track around the turntable that was badly damaged by the fire. The ties were burned out, and there was some track that the heat of the fire caused the track to buckle. We still have a washout from 3 winters ago that limit how far we can run the train, but we could take a train from the turntable, after we clean up some of that minor damage, and down to the train station and back again without any problem.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's pretty limited run.
Yes.
And we don't have any train cars to run on, so
yeah.
We have a ways to go before we would ever have public back on the site. And
I see.
And that's one of the questions we have to get clarification on is with the county. They'll let us rebuild the railroad, but they're probably never going to let us make it a major public venue because it's outside the zoning rules for that area.
Oh.
So, if we're going to spend a lot of money fixing up the railroad, it'd be good if it was more accessible to the public.
Yes. It wasn't public before?
We would have 3 or 4 events a year and we'll talk more about this.
Oh, I see. I get you.
We'd have 3 or 4 events a year where we would open up the railroad, and we'd cap those events at 500 people, and we never had trouble selling out. And
oh, wow.
We'd turn people away the day of the event that we're just hoping that they could, get in.
Sneak in.
Yeah, when it was open, people flocked, right? I mean, we
wow.
had people coming. I think one of the last times we had an event, which is now 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, we had a guy from Florida that
holy smokes
traveled out here just to ride the train, and it's not unusual for people from Oregon, Washington, Colorado, lots of different places that would come, and they were on the mailing list, and as soon as they'd hear it was going to be open, they would
boom
information. And
yep.
But that was allowed because Al Smith just did it. He never he never got the permits or anything. He just did it, and so it was kind of, the county said, well, it's grandfathered in. You can continue to have the kinds of events you've had historically, but you can't do more.
Can't grow it to open full time.
We couldn't do every weekend run the train kind of thing.
The
county would not let us do that. So, and one of the things and I'll talk about this in the presentation, we're really looking at whether or not the current location's the right place, because a good part of the track is part of the attractiveness is the track parallels the creek, but that's part of the long-term sustainable nature of the railroad, with all the regulations for a creek that supports the salmon fishery.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can't just go in there and start messing with the creek. And so, we have talked to the county about moving it to a different location on the ranch, because that would give us the ability we could protect it from being walked out. So anyway, there's lots of
that's interesting.
Like that. Yeah. So
well, I'm looking forward to your talk. I've always wondered, but never really researched it. So looking forward.
It's a pretty well kept secret, you know. And, you know, Al Smith. I'll talk a little bit about his history. He actually worked for Southern Pacific for a number of years. He went to work for him during World War II, and then he was blown off of a rail car by a blast of steam and ended up losing part of his leg. And so he actually bought the first piece of property associated with what's called Swanton Pacific Ranch. He bought that property with proceeds from the settlement from the settlement.
Oh, wow.
And then, you know, but he never lost his love of the railroad. And when he caught wind that the little steam locomotives were going to go up for sale, he couldn't help himself. And he ended up buying, actually, finding all 5 of the original locomotives, actually 6 with the 1500, and bringing them all to the ranch. And,
wow.
But it was just a bunch of his buddies, railroad buddies, that basically would get together on weekends and build track and play with these steam locomotives. And
wow.
And all those guys are dead, and there's a handful of volunteers that continue to work to maintain those locomotives and all the track and everything else. It's a pain. I mean, that's
I can imagine.
Because it's just not big enough to be. It's not scalable kind of thing. And because it's even if it was even if the county would let us. The typical train ride with a similar train is like $5. If you go to San Jose, you can ride on the Billy Jones Wildcat Railroad, and the ticket's $5. Well, you start doing the math, you have to have a lot of people riding that train to pay for what, the good news is we have an endowment.
Yes.
That basically covers the operation. And, but if we needed to do any major, like what we're going to be faced with now, I'm thinking that the restoration of the locomotives that were damaged in the fire is probably, you send them out to a specialty shop, it's probably $250,000.
Yeah.
For each locomotive.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, where that money had come from is anybody's guess. So.
You didn't have insurance, or Swanton Pacific didn't, or Cal Poly?
The corporation's the one that owns, so Cal Poly Corporation is the owner of Swanton Pacific Ranch and the railroad. And they had insurance on the buildings.
Oh.
No insurance on the building contents.
Oh.
And, hindsight's always 20/20.
Of course.
Whether you could even get insurance for those locomotives, I don't know.
That's the thing. It might have cost prohibitive.
I'm sure you can. If you have enough money, you can get insurance for anything, right?
Yes. Lloyd's of London.
Yeah. I mean, even at my age, I can buy life insurance. But so anyway, and that's really complicated the cleanup process, because the other sites on the ranch, and almost everything on the ranch burned down, except for the main head